I saw Star Wars: The Last Jedi on the night it came out, actually, my hometown. And before I start anything about this conversation, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I am a massive Star Wars fan. I've read the Legends books. I've made like my own Lego mocks. I've made Minecraft builds of like planets from movies. I've read the canon books. I have all 6 films, on Blu-ray. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and this movie absolutely tore me apart. I honestly do not even want to touch, any film of Star Wars for a long time. I want to forget this movie ever happened. I really wish that this movie just never existed. I wish Disney just never even started the movies again. They should have just left it with Revenge of the Sith, and just left it at that. Let Star Wars have his legacy. Leave it alone. And I held off for a while making this video because I've been processing everything from the film. I've been trying to think of the positives. Thinking, well, maybe I was wrong about it. Maybe I should give it another chance. And I did. And I still don't like it. I still fundamentally almost hate this movie. And it has some good things that I will list, before I reach my bucket list of negatives that I probably won't even get to finish in this video. But let's start with the positives. For one, oh, by the way, this is a spoiler review. If you haven't seen the movie, too bad. This movie's been out for several weeks. You should have seen it by now. And I don't mean to sound rude, but I'm just really just pissed thinking about this movie. But yeah, that was a spoiler warning. You've been warned. If you haven't seen the film, go watch it, or go on Wikipedia, read the synopsis. I don't care. But the positives that I did like, man, see, there's not that much stuff I did like. This is actually kind of difficult. I did like the Battle of Crate. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it was just like the Battle of Hoth, but I like the ski speeder, design, and the whole idea of the speeders, and the white salt and like the red dust from it. I thought that was cool, and of course the part where Holdo goes into light speed and she like cuts through the supremacy. I thought that was a beautiful scene. And throughout this movie, it's a very beautiful movie, but it sacrifices storytelling for spectacle. And Adam Driver said something about this, and it's very ironic because he's playing in this movie, which pretty much sacrifices good storytelling for spectacle. It may look beautiful, but it's as shallow as a puddle. As wide as an ocean, as shallow as a puddle. That was pretty much the only 2 things that I liked about the movie. Everything else I disagreed with completely. Things didn't make sense. Things looked bad. Characters were betrayed. Characters were thrown out into the garbage. It was a waste. And it brings about a lot of plot holes from The Force Awakens that never got answered. But we'll start from the beginning of the story. I'll go in order from the beginning to the end and get through my negatives. So the beginning of the movie, this is a problem that is in the entire film, and it's the humor. The humor is like a Marvel movie. I was like, for a second, I was like, am I watching Star Wars or am I watching Guardians of the Galaxy? I was like, it's too much humor, and the humor wasn't even done well. There's a few parts where I chuckled a little bit, but then like after the movie, I'm thinking to myself, that was really corny. That doesn't feel like Star Wars. This doesn't feel right. It's like having Poe having like a Yo Mama joke with Hux, and calling him Hugs. And at first it was funny, but then I was like, but this doesn't belong. And the original trilogy had humor too, but it wasn't forced. It felt natural, and it was more sarcastic humor. This one is just like, ha, we're funny. Yeah, it's a Marvel movie. It's just like, it didn't fit. So we go on from that, and then we go on to the bomber scene. And he was like, and this is my next problem. You have these bombers, right? And they unload payloads. Just like, old World War II bombers that George Lucas was inspired by. But how does gravity work? How do the bombs fall down just completely straight, but in the vacuum of space? Wouldn't they float? You could assume that maybe the shields from the ship, like, brought the bombs down, but there were no shields. So I don't understand how the bombs are just affected by gravity. And not to mention these bombers, they're made of paper. So the whole point of these bombers is to get super close to the ship to drop a payload. But they're made of paper, so they get destroyed by the time they get there. So what's the point of the ship? Why didn't they just keep Y-wings? They could shoot from a range to disable vehicles and, destroy important, parts of a ship. So why do you have these things that have to get so close to the ship to the point where they can just get destroyed by the cannons or by the TIE fighters? That part made no sense to me. And of course we saw Rose's sister die. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then we move on to Rey on Octu. So she's about to hand the lightsaber to Luke, which she does, and then Luke just throws it over his shoulder. And that was very surprising at first. I thought that was neat, but of course, that didn't feel right either. It felt like humor. And I don't know if they were trying to make that be funny or if they were trying to be serious with it, but it felt like a joke. But it was so out of character. Luke is just out of character in this movie, and I can't watch the original trilogy anymore without thinking about how much Luke has changed for the worse. He threw away his father's lightsaber. This thing, this very object it's an heirloom. It's been in his family, in his lineage for decades. And he just throws it over his shoulder with no respect because it reminds him too much of his old life. But it's like, but that's your father's lightsaber. This is the man, that was a brave man in the Clone Wars that really deserves some respect with his lightsaber, and you just throw it away over your shoulder. Be like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I'm a grumpy old man. And Luke, he's not the same Luke. And just like Mark Hamill said, that's not my Luke Skywalker. That's just not. I don't believe that that's our Luke Skywalker. It's just a totally different character. And people have made the excuse, oh yeah, but it's been 30 years or so that, he's been able to change his personality. But in Legends, I know Legends is not canon, but but in Legends, Luke was the same character that he was in the films. He made mistakes. He had students turn to the dark side. He had his own nephew turn to the dark side. But you know what Ryan Johnson says that Luke does when his nephew turns to the dark side? Oh, I'm just going to kill him. I'm going to kill him because I sense some dark side. We're talking about the same Luke Skywalker that went on a suicide mission to turn his father to the light side. But when he senses a little bit of darkness in his nephew, his best friend and his sister's son, I'm going to kill him. Why? That's not Luke Skywalker. It's not. You made him into a killer. If somebody has thoughts like that, they're not mentally stable. They're really not. I didn't even know what to think of that. It was so lazy and it was terrible storytelling. It was bad characterization. Oh, and this movie hurts my head. Oh my goodness. So yeah. So we see Rey following him around on the island, telling him that she needs to get trained. She follows around the island. He drinks some titty milk off some, nasty creature, and he enjoys it. It's pretty weird. Was not amused. And then, Luke finally gets tired of it, and he decides, he's actually going to train her, like, in 3 lessons. But we only really see 2 lessons in the entire film. There's only 1 lesson taught. And we don't even learn anything new about the Force. All we see is that Luke thinks that the Jedi Order was bad. And of course they were bad. The Jedi Order was very flawed. But if you think the Jedi Order is flawed, then why wouldn't you go to improve it and to make it better? Don't know. This is never really explained. He says the Jedi Order is bad, but he doesn't go on to improve it. He just gives up. It's time for the Jedi to end, whatever. And then we see some more of some bad Luke humor. a character that was never supposed to be a funny character, you know. And there's Rey reaching out with the Force, and then he like tickles her hand with like a leaf, and he's like, "Ooh, yeah, that's the Force." And then he walks away. She splits the rock with her mind after looking through the Force or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, I'm afraid," and he goes off, his storms off to his hut. And then so then we cut back to the whole Resistance story. I'm not even gonna go over the whole thing with Rose because her character is so useless and it does more harm to the plot than good. So Finn, he wakes up from his little coma. They made some more comedy out of it with him walking around naked with the whole back to soups, spraying everywhere. Then he's about to leave on an escape pod, and then Rose tases him, tells him not to leave. Then they make up a plan to go stop the First Order ship from tracking the rebels through hyperspace because they can do that. So they make up a plan, and Finn and Rose leave to go to this planet Canto Bight to find this master hacker that could allow them to get through hyperspace without the First Order tracking them. And then after this, the ship's attacked by Kylo Ren and his allies. Kylo Ren doesn't shoot at the bridge where Leia's at, and he hesitates, and the other fighters do it for him. And Leia, this would have been the perfect time for Leia to die. Leia could have died in this part, and it would have been so bold but so right because Carrie Fisher passed away. But no, we're just gonna have Leia fly through space like Superman. I laughed. I've never laughed so hard at a Star Wars movie in my life, and I've seen the prequels. This part was so bad. I laughed out loud in the theater. It was so bad. She literally flies through space like Mary Poppins. But aside from the comedy factor, why would she not be dead from the explosion, first of all, and she can't breathe in space? You can even see the frost on her skin from space. She should be dead. The second that bridge blew up, all the air from her lungs should have been sucked out and she should have been dead. She should not have lived in space, and the fact that she survived, and even when she got to the door, flying through space like Mary Poppins, she opens the door, yet no one is sucked out into space, so they get her body, but no one is affected by the fact that the door just opens and there's space outside, yet nothing happens. No one gets pulled out, no one stops breathing, nothing. So they take Leia to the medical bay, and then she's in a coma for a little bit of the movie until the end. And then we get the whole Canto Bight sequence. I'm not even going to explain that because that part is it's the weakest part of the movie. It's so boring. I wanted to fall asleep, and it tried to push an agenda. It tried to give us lessons. Oh, the rich are bad, The rich are bad. Save the animals. And also notice how on the planet, if Star Wars wasn't as social justice warriors as it is now, you notice that all the guards, all the policemen on the Canto Bight are all white males. I'm not white, but that I can obviously tell where they were coming from. White people, white supremacy. Men are bad, and they're all men and they're all white. They're trying to push an agenda like, oh, all white people are bad. Inclusivity. We need to be inclusive. And then, oh god. And then they meet the hacker, DJ, in the cell after Finn and Rose get captured because they parked illegally. And they meet DJ, but for some reason he's in the cell, but he doesn't leave, even though he has the ability to leave. He's just waiting for them, but he doesn't know who they are. So he leaves. BB-8 shoots some coins. I wish this was made up, but this is true. BB-8 shoots coins at a guard and actually is effective. Wish I was making that up. BB-8 shoots some coins at this guard. Ha, funny. It's BB-8 humor. And then Finn and Rey, they're going through Canto Bight. There's this terrible CGI aliens, and they're riding on these horses. And then they get and then they're about to get captured by the guards. They get saved by DJ. DJ tells Finn that that not all sides are good or evil, that the rich are selling to both sides, the Resistance and the First Order. Wow. And Finn is so surprised, like he's never heard, of this kind of thing before. Like, what? Not not everything's good or evil? What? What? The Resistance can be bad? And then this plot point's never brought up ever again. Oh man, and then we get introduced to this Holdo character, and for some reason she doesn't tell Poe the plan that she had to evacuate the ships, and this leads to a mutiny that could have been avoided if she had just told Poe the plan. If she had just told him the plan, then this whole mutiny thing would have been gone, and everybody would have been able to escape, and there would have been no misunderstanding. So Holdo's plan basically was to get everybody on little transports to fly to this abandoned rebel planet from years ago on Crete. And while this is happening, Finn, Rose, and DJ BB-8 they all go to the Supremacy ship. On the Supremacy ship, they're trying to disable the tracking device, but DJ betrays them, and they are about to get executed by Phasma. And before I continue, while this is happening as well, Rey finds out that her parents are nobodies, and they were just drunkers just looking for money, or something like that. She goes through this whole sequence on Octu, and then she fights Luke, but for some reason she wins because strong female characters, they have to beat men. So she beats Luke in a duel with the staff, and then she like leaves with Chewbacca, and then she gets captured on purpose on the Supremacy, and then she gets taken to Snoke, and then Snoke of a oh my god, Snoke was so hyped up, and he got wasted. He got killed by Kylo Ren. He's going on this tangent like, oh, my apprentice can't betray me, and then you see the lightsaber rattling beside him, and then it just stabs right through him, and this was so corny. So you can't sense and you can't hear that there's a lightsaber rattling right next to you, and it just stabs you. And then they tried to make a joke out of it. They had his body fall over, and they had his tongue sticking out later. I was like, oh my god, they made this an absolute joke. So Rey gets her lightsaber, and then this unexperienced, girl that's literally had no training. She's literally held onto a lightsaber for what, 3 days, 2 days, and now she fights these highly professional Praetorian guards. They've been trained since birth. They are the elite of the elite. Supreme Leader Snoke's guards, and she beats them. Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker got their hands cut off in their real lightsaber fights. Rey gets a little scratch on the shoulder. Wow, we can't injure the female. She gets a little scrape on the arm, and then she beats the guards. But Luke, it took 3 years for him to lift a lightsaber, and he gets his hand cut off. Anakin got trained, but he got his hand cut off. Oh, but Rey gets a little scratch on the arm, and then with a little ouch, and then it's all fine. Kylo Ren, offers her to join him and to, forget about everything, to kill the past or whatever. She declines. They start fighting over Luke's lightsaber, then it explodes. Then we move on to Holdo. Everybody's on their ships leaving. When DJ snitched that they were, fleeing on little vessels, they start shooting at the smaller ships. Holdo sacrifices herself, and she light speeds through the Supremacy, which was the part that I did like. And the Supremacy's all half destroyed, and then we get a fight between Finn and Phasma. We've all been waiting for this, and then Finn beats her, and Phasma dies with no importance to the plot whatsoever. Why did they say that, Phasma's going to have a bigger role in The Last Jedi? So her bigger role was just getting into a fight with Finn, and with a cheesy one-liner from Finn, let's go, Chrome Dome. And then, she always like, I know you're always scum. He's like, rebel scum. I cringed so hard. And then she hits her in the helmet, and she falls down to the flames, and that's the end of Phasma. We don't see her again. What a waste of a character. 2 wastes of characters, and Luke's characterization is all wrong. Finn, Rose, BB-8, they escape, and they meet with the Resistance on Crate, and then we get the whole Crate battle. Finn was about to have a character moment. Finn was gonna. They have this battering ram that they're trying to use to blow through the door of the rebel base. So Finn has a character moment for once, and he's about to sacrifice himself to destroy the weapon so they can't get through the wall. But Rose comes in and saves the day. It saves Finn's life, and then they're crashed down. And she's like, "We don't get something about the ones we hate. It's about the ones we love, or something like that." And she gives him like this middle school kiss. She like pecks him on the lip, and Finn's like, "What the heck? I've only known you for 18 hours." The romance in this movie does not work. If you compare this to The Empire Strikes Back, it's unmatched. The romance in that movie was done perfectly well because you had two characters that have known each other for 3 years, and they've had enough time to know each other and to become romantically involved. You know, but Rose has known Finn for 18 hours, but she falls in love with him and she kisses him, and Finn's like, "What?" And then, you know, and for some reason, the AT-ATs don't notice that there's two survivors standing right there, and they don't shoot at them, and somehow they make it back to the rebels on this plain white field where they're super visible. Don't understand that. So the First Order, they break through the walls. The rebels, the Resistance is on the run, and Luke comes to the place, and you know, we get a nice moment with him and Leia. And I thought that was nice. So we finally get the showdown between Luke and Kylo Ren. It's a showdown of the ages. I was prepared. I was ready. I was so ready for this part. Luke dodges all of his attacks, and he slices through Luke, and Luke's not there. He's transparent. This whole time he was a hologram buying them time. So then the rebels escape with the help of Rey and Chewbacca, who use the Millennium Falcon. Who, you know, they take out the TIE fighters and they raise the rocks with the help of the ice dogs or whatever, and then they save the Resistance. There's like 15 people left in the Resistance. They're all on board. Finn and Rose make it back somehow, and they're on the ship. And then we get this nice moment of Luke looking into the binary sunset, which is like an homage to the, you know, the twin suns from Tatooine from A New Hope. And then Luke dies. I wouldn't have been angry with Luke dying if he didn't die like this. Characters, it's always tough to kill main characters, especially ones that have been part of a franchise for so long. Luke went out like a bitch. Luke could have went out in a much stronger way, but he dies of force exhaustion. He's tired. Projecting yourself across the galaxy, I bet, takes a lot of effort and a lot of, you know, energy. But that's how he dies. He dies from force exhaustion. He doesn't go out in a blaze of glory. He doesn't fight for the greater good. You know, he doesn't, you know, fight actually in person with Kylo Ren. You know, he doesn't actually go out in like, you know, a final moment of you know, of the fight, and, you know, he doesn't die in action. He just dies from force exhaustion. He doesn't even leave the island in the entire movie. What would have been better if Luke had actually been there? It would have been so much more emotional. Because since he wasn't there, he gives Leia Hans a golden dice, but then the dice disappear when he dies. It's like, then what was the point? Luke was so wasted. His character is not the same. And then the Resistance escapes, and then that's it. The movie ends. Luke Skywalker is not the same person. This man of hope, of justice, of everything, becomes a coward. So when people of this new generation watch this movie and they've never seen the original trilogy, they're going to think of Luke as a whiny bitch. But that's not his character. Luke has never been like that. He's always been the optimistic one, the one with the hope, the one that was going to bring the balance. But after his nephew turns to the dark side, he decides he's going to kill his nephew, and when that doesn't work, he decides to go into hiding and wants to die on the island because he failed. Instead of trying to fix the problems he created, like a normal Luke Skywalker character would do, like he did in Legends. He becomes a coward. He becomes afraid. When his best friend's dead, his sister's in trouble, she almost dies. Thousands and hundreds of people are getting murdered by the First Order, and he doesn't want to help because he wants to die. He's depressed. It's not the Luke Skywalker I grew up with. I grew up with the heroic Luke Skywalker, but that got deprived from me. It got deprived from everybody. The Luke Skywalker we knew ended in Return of the Jedi. So whenever you watch the original trilogy again, remember that 30 years later, Luke becomes a coward and a hermit and becomes a shell of his former self. Just think about that the next time you're watching a Star Wars movie of the original trilogy. I thought this movie was absolute dog anus. It was absolutely terrible. It was disappointing. If you read the story out loud, like I tried to, I didn't do a good job. There have been YouTubers that have done this review way better than I have. But when you read the story out loud, it sounds dumb. It sounds super stupid. They sacrificed pushing an agenda for good storytelling. And the fact that people have said this is the best movie since Empire is a huge exaggeration. Yeah, Return of the Jedi wasn't the best. But Return of the Jedi is still special, you know? And the fact that people are saying that this is as equally as intelligent as The Empire Strikes Back is wrong. Well, I won't say wrong, because everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But I don't understand. It just confuses me why people think this is a masterpiece and why this is so amazing. Because there's too much plot holes, everything is just so wrong with this. Characters don't make sense. You have this whole Knights of Ren idea, and the Knights of Ren aren't even mentioned. That's been my rant. It's been almost pretty much a half an hour of recording. If you really care about this franchise, you'd point out its criticism instead of protecting it so much. If you really care about the franchise, I hope you notice the negatives of this. You know, instead of saying that this is the best thing ever, that I'm a fanboy. You know, fanboys. You know, they don't know anything. That's so immature, because it's Star Wars. It's a series that brings people together. You know, mixed races. You know, aliens, stories to tell, adventures. It brings everybody together. It's a universe that really shows people's interests, in pop culture, and storytelling, and adventure. But in this new Disney trilogy, everything has to be reflected about our own political state, about everything that happens in real life. That doesn't bring people together. When you make, all the guards on Picanto Bight all white males, or, there's no male leaders in the entire resistance, or the First Order is, even more Nazis than they are in the original trilogy. It doesn't bring people together. It's like, yeah, you may have some main characters that are different races, but everything else is completely wrong in the way that you're portraying real life politics. Star Wars has never been about bringing real life politics. It's a place for you to escape, to see a good story, to see a saga unfold with good pacing and a story that you can follow for any age. But this movie is poorly paced and it's poorly told. It's a mediocre story. Maybe even worse than that. Terrible. But that's just my opinion. You're entitled to your own opinion. If you like the movie, I'm not going to fault you for that, because who am I? But coming from a huge Star Wars fan, this movie was the most disappointing thing I've ever seen. And I now know how people felt when they saw The Phantom Menace in theaters. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope this taught you something or maybe opened your mind about something on pop culture entertainment. And I'm out.